So what we should have, you should have my first page. I'm going to talk about the moon in astrology. And the reason I use astrology is because it's a tool that's helped me to heal early childhood trauma, meaning not, completely heal it and banish it, but it's helped me to understand myself, and it's a way of knowing ourselves. So what I'm about to do is see if anybody comes on. I'm not going to be able to see the chat whilst I'm going through the slideshow, but I will dip in to see if anybody comes on as I go through, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to go for it. So this is about the moon in astrology and signs and houses. And this picture here is a picture that a friend took of the moon, which is really beautiful. You can see there. Now, what I have is what we can know about the moon in astrology is that the new moon, when we have a new moon, it affects the whole month ahead. And a full moon, you can see here, affects 2 weeks ahead. So when we begin to look at a chart, and we can begin to see how it's playing out in our lives. We've also got lunar eclipses, which we had one on the 16th of July, and wherever that fell for you in your astrology chart means that that is the area of life that it's affecting for the next 6 months ahead. So we had a solar eclipse on the 2nd, and then we had a lunar eclipse on the 16th, and I'll explain that to you when I get to my chart. Then we've got, can't see any live chat there, I'm just looking, but I'm going to keep going. So then we have that the moon takes an average of 29 and a half days to orb around a chart and to move through the 12 signs in an astrology chart. So that means that every 2.5 days, just about, the moon is changing signs. And we'll be able to look in a moment where the moon is for all of us on planet Earth. And then what sign it's in. And then we've got the nodes, which are the nodes of the moon. In evolutionary astrology, we look at Pluto, and we look at the north node and the south node of the moon. And in that, the nodes take 1.5 years through each sign, around 19 years to orb the entire chart. Okay, next. So this is exciting for people maybe who don't know astrology, because it's like a lesson, so to speak, of what it means. So I'm going to go through this. I'm going to get my pointer. Let's see. There it is. Right. Okay. So what we have is that we have, like we would have an astrology wheel, for instance, and each we've got the first house, second, all the way through, you can see, to the 12th. So the first house would be Aries, and the second house is Taurus, and the third house is Gemini. The fourth house is Cancer. The fifth house is Leo. The sixth house is Virgo. The seventh house is Libra. The eighth house is Scorpio. The ninth house is Sagittarius, and the 10th house is Capricorn, and the 11th house is Aquarius, and the 12th house is Pisces. And what it means is that the first house would stand for I am, awareness of self, and it's about appearance, outward personality. The second house, which would be Taurus, is I have, it's about personal resources and money, possessions, values, and skills. The third house is mental activity. It's Gemini, mental activity, learning, siblings, communication, short journeys also. And it's about, I think, it's about the immediate environment that we're in. The fourth house, Cancer, is home, parents, roots, and inner security. And the ruler, of course, is the moon of the fourth house, Cancer. Fifth house is Leo, and it's romance, children, fun, and creativity. And I serve. So it's, personal creativity, how we're serving as well. And the sixth house is Virgo, work, health, service, self-improvement, and I serve daily. And the seventh house, Libra, marriage and other partnerships. It's I partner, awareness of others. And then the eighth house, it's ruled by Scorpio, ruled by Pluto, sex, death, letting go, regeneration, other people's money, and sharing. And it's I circulate and share resources. And the ninth house, which is Sagittarius, is ruled by Jupiter, which is higher education, philosophy, publishing, religion, travel, law, and expanded horizons, so to speak. The 10th house is Capricorn, and we have career status, reputation, vocational purpose, and taking power. So it's the self-image that, you know, the world sees. It's the image that we put out there, and it's the outer world. And the 11th house is friends, groups. It's Aquarius, and it's the ruler is Uranus, and it's friends, groups, goals, and aspirations. I aspire, and group contribution. And the 12th house is solitude, is Pisces. 12th house is Pisces, and it's solitude, institutions, transcendence, self-sabotage also. And it's I dream, it's a spiritual life. So we're going to begin to make some sense of this now. I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm going to come out of my spotlight, and maybe I don't know if I can. And then my next one. Okay, so the moon is similar to this is from, I will say, Jeff Wolf Green, and this is a book I suggest you get. I highly recommend it. It's the Pluto, the Evolutionary Journey of the Soul, and in Evolutionary Astrology, this is the book. I have book 1, and I also have book 2, and I highly recommend you get a copy of this book. I'll put the link below the video so that you'll be able to purchase this on Amazon. And it's a brilliant way of understanding our soul. Pluto in evolutionary astrology is the main thing. And then we have the nodes of the moon, the north node and the south node. And the south node is past life, and the north node is this life path. So let's read this, what Jeff Wolf Green says here. He says, the moon is similar to the lens in a movie projector. Without the lens, there would be no picture up on the screen. Each personality has an intrinsic nature and orientation that experiences life in its own unique way. Each personality that the soul manifests relates directly to the evolutionary necessities of the soul. And the soul, through the personality, must experience life in particular ways in order to grow and evolve. And each personality created is directly linked to the past, evolutionary and karmic history of the soul. So the nodes of the moon show where we've been, and the north node shows where we're going. But clearly with the moon, we've got that moves around the chart 29 and a half days a year as well. Not a year, sorry, a month, so to speak. Okay. So a bit more information on the moon here. We've got the moon represents the personal self, feelings, and part unconscious. And it also reflects consciousness and our moment by moment. It's about our emotional satisfaction, emotional unrest, feelings of belongings, and emotional fulfillment. So, you know, like if you go through a day, you're going to be, you know, your moods, you know, they're basically changing all of the time. And if we look at an astrology chart, we can see what goes on. Like, you know, if all of us, like a few days ago, it was Pluto was squaring the moon, then it will give a sort of air to what's going on in the world, a flavor to what's going on. And another example would be that, you know, wherever the moon is, like if the moon is in Leo for 2.5 days, then people behave in a particular way. And I see this play out. And if the moon is in Virgo, then people are going about their routines. If the moon is in Gemini, then there's a lot of communication going on. So we can see things play out when we look at an astrology chart. We've got here that we've also got feelings of belonging and emotional fulfillment. And then the fourth house, Cancer, and the archetype of the femininity and mother. And mother is not just, you know, birth mother, it's like Mother Earth. It's, you know, it's quite deep in the meaning. And clearly that, you know, for instance, people can not have children and be mothering. So it's not just meaning a physical mother, it's more than that. It's about security, what's familiar. It's looking back in order to look forward, because the only way we can really look forward is by looking back. We know where we're going by the past. Our habits and instinct and how we relate to others, and nurturing and how we nurture. So depending where the moon is in our house, we're going to see how we play out our emotional states and the sign it's in and the house it's in. Next slide. Okay, so I have myself, let me see here. I've got my moon, if you can see. I don't know if this, I'm in the way there with my Oops, there you go. So what we've got is that we've got the 7th house moon in Gemini for me. So you can see here that my moon at birth, this is my birthday, 21st of May, 1966. And this chart is dated transits the 25th of July, 2019. So what we have is that my moon at birth is 17 degrees of Gemini. So that is how, and it's in the 7th house. So how I play out my life. I'll go a bit more into that in a minute. We've got, and so if you basically go to astro.com, what you're going to be able to find is if you have your time of birth, which you do need, your date of birth, time of birth, and place of birth, and you put in your details, you're going to come up with a chart like this, and it's going to show you exactly where your planets fall. And do something, there you go. And then we have so you look at the sign and the house when you're looking at your moon. And then you look at the aspects to the moon, and then the north node of the moon, and for me, it's in the 6th house. So this is the north node of the moon. This is my future, where I'm heading, what I'm about, what I'm trying to embrace now. And the south node of the moon is in my Scorpio in past life. And it's just about on my AC conjuncting my ascendant there, you can see. The reason I've got a Scorpio rising, which says a lot about how I put myself out into the world. And often the rising sign is what people notice first, which is worth knowing. So people might say, like, you know, people who are not deep into astrology might say they're a Scorpio or they're a Gemini or they're a Taurus. But astrology is far, far deeper than one can possibly imagine. It's only when we begin to look at a chart and we begin to integrate everything and look at it deeply and look at all of the aspects which are here, for instance. So I'll give you an example. My Pluto, which is conjunct my MC, basically is squaring a square, my moon, and that is very defining of what that means. That means that the moon is my, it would have been the mother archetype and my inner security. And Pluto is about, birth, death, taxes, and it's about transmuting, and it's very deep. Pluto, it's our soul. So that shows a square, shows that there's a lot of tension there. So that can mean many different things for different people, but it shows for me that there was tension. The moon also, for me, another thing, it's squaring my Chiron, which also shows that's the wound that I've come into this world with to heal. And you can see that my Chiron is conjunct my IC. Sorry, I'll go back there. Right, the moon is conjunct my IC. So I'm going to read to you. I don't know if anybody's watching because somebody's there. Somebody's there and they're saying, can't see what they're saying because it's on my mobile phone, but I'll look at messages in a minute. So basically what we've got is I'm going to read a little rundown on my 7th house moon so you can understand what that means to me there. And also I've got, you see these lines going here, that's called an inconjunct, those little green lines. So everything on an astrology chart means something, and it helps us to evolve as we understand ourselves. So it says here that with that moon in the 7th house, for me, it says you are drawn to partnerships and prefer to have a companion for emotional support. You are not a person who would happily take in a movie by yourself or dine alone, for example. A partner awakens feelings in you that you may never know you had, and you seem to need a partner in order to learn about your needs and feelings. So for me, I bounce off other people, like people, I like to speak and it's in Gemini. So I'm very chatty and I like to talk to people, and through other people, I learn about myself. And it's important for me to have friends that I can speak to. It says here also, emotional fulfillment is sought through relationships. So relationships are all relationships. It can be, I go into a coffee shop daily, I have the local person there, I have a relationship with them. So relationships are not just bound to, being like intimate relationships. We have relationships with everybody we meet in life. We might have a relationship with our neighbor, as an example. But the different types of relationships, clearly. So it says emotional fulfillment is sought through relationships, but you may have many relationships, one after the other. So each time believing that the people that we meet, that, you know, they're long term, but that doesn't always work out that way. It says taking time between people is something hard to do, but quite necessary. As you tend to, so it says that you tend to jump in and out of relationships out of fear of being alone. But I'm going to point this out. We evolve our charts. So what we come in with and what we're born with is not just the be all and end all, because I'll tell you, with my Pluto in the 9th house and my Uranus in the 9th house there, these planets here, which the 9th house is Sagittarius, although it's got Virgo up there. So I am quite happy being a loner on my own. So we never take just one placement and say that's who we are, but I'm just giving you an idea of what the moon means. It says you are very adaptable to others' needs and usually quite likable as a result. And it says, be careful that you don't become over-dependent on a partner or assume that a partner is going to treat you the same way that you treat them. And it says you depend a great deal upon other people for emotional support, and you have a large family of friends that care about you and treat you as kin. And that's absolutely true. I do have a large family of friends. It says the women in your life are particularly important to you, and your relationships with them powerfully influences your sense of security and happiness, and you may be overly dependent and unsure of yourself without a close partner. So I don't know if that's absolutely true about the close partner, but definitely when I was younger it was, but we evolve, so we've got to remember that. So I'm going to go to the next slide. And something Carl Gustav Jung said, he said, I think most people do know who Carl Jung is, but I'm often surprised to find out that not everybody does. So Carl Jung was the founder of psychoanalysis, along with the early people like Freud. And Freud was 20 years younger than Jung. And basically, this is one thing that Jung said. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And this is the beauty of astrology, that we get to objectify our lives and chat. If we work with an astrologer or we learn our own chart, we get to understand what we're doing and what we struggle with. And almost, I heard somebody brilliant earlier, I was listening to a video, and it says, you know, we can turn the squares and the tensions into trines in our life. And, you know, there's a lot that we can do. We're not stuck with our chart, because the chart is a snapshot of the heavens at birth. This is about Pluto. Sorry, I didn't remove that bit there, but this also relates to Pluto in the chart as well. That's saying to me, you know, going deep into the psyche. He also says what you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. And this is true with regard to Pluto. And generally, if we don't look at our lives and we don't objectify, then we're not going to evolve. So the sooner we begin to dig deep, the better. And resistance determines the magnitude of our problems or confrontations. Next slide. This is Uganda, and I love this saying. Let me see if there's anybody in live chat here. I will look in a minute. You're saying, somebody said, are these categories ranked from 1 to 12? Yes, they are. They're houses. They're I'll have to go dig a bit deeper in that. I might need to understand what your question is there, but let's see. No, not as in lower or higher. No, it just is a section of area of life. So it's about an area of life. There's no ranking of one being higher or lower than the other. So what have we got next? Mankind is engaged in an eternal quest for that something else he hopes will bring him happiness, complete and unending. For those individual souls who have sought and found God, the search is over, and he is that something else. So we've all got God, you know, God is not only, you know, outside us, like in the beautiful things and whatever we're seeing, all of the experiences. God is subjective. So whatever we feel God to be, and it's like a knowing that there is a God. I see that in flowers. I see that when I go to bed at night and I sleep and I have dreams and out-of-body experiences or whatever goes on with me. It's something that's very deep work that, if I make sense here, with the chart, it's deep work that we go into when we begin to understand our chart and the moon. And then the last slide is, I'm going to come off and see if there's any chat, but this is my email if you've got any questions. And I also do readings, and you can book me below. Just look at the video below the video, what I do there. So let's come out of share, stop share. Okay, I'm back. So let's see if I can bring up my, let's see, end slideshow, come out of that, and then I'm going to go to my live control room.
This is my email if you've got any questions.
Oh no, sorry. Okay, so basically, I hope you didn't get any feedback there that scared you. So basically, if you look at astrology, you'll be able to begin to understand what you're doing here and what it means to you. It's really, really helped me. And if you do get your astrology chart done on astro.com, which is free, what you'll be able to do is get a couple of books. And here's one here. It's called Planets in Aspect. So the aspects that I was showing you, the lines on the chart, would be, for instance, those lines, they're called aspects. And with this book, you're able to then flip into the, conjunctions or whatever's going on in your chart. And then the other book I've got, that's Planets in Aspect. And this one is Planets in Transit. So these planets in transit mean what's going on today. So for instance, we know today where the moon is, for instance. I should know that off by heart, but I have not written it down. But anyway, it moves through signs every 2.5 days. So if you know what house the moon is in, you know what you're going through over a period of time. So for instance, we could say other things like, you could be going through a week where the moon, or a couple of days where the moon is sextile Venus. That means that is an aspect, as an example, or the moon conjuncting Venus. And because the moon moves so quickly, it's very fleeting, but we do get affected. I've seen it play out in my life. So that's it. I think Ronafano69 says, astrology is even too esoteric, often for many who are familiar with Jung. It is. It's interesting. Jung read about 500 charts when he was in practice. I don't know if you're aware of that, Ron Fan 69. So Jung basically did use astrology and the symbolism in his own practice, which is fascinating. Anyway, I think that's it for today. I don't see anybody else there. There's a couple of people watching, but if you've got any questions on this, or you want me to look at your chart with you, you can basically, send me an email. Or if you can't figure out how to print off your chart, or go to astro.com, if you can't figure that out, then I'm happy to help briefly. I wouldn't read it for you, but I'd be able to help you put those details in and send it to you, which is quite easy for me. Okay, I think that's it for today. I've been on for about half an hour. And any questions, then I'm also over on Facebook as well. I've got a like page, and I've got a public page as well. So just have a look over on Facebook. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back probably tomorrow with something else on astrology. Catch you later.